And we are back. I don't care. Let's start with the question. Matt, you're here with us today, so you get the first question. What's coming in the air tonight?
I don't want to answer that the way you phrased it.
Heyo, we are talking Miami Vice today on Pilot Pass. As you hear, we have a guest with us today. But first of all, I'll talk about my esteemed co-host, Del, the master of ceremony. Pulling? Would that be accurate, Del?
MC Dell in the house.
Yay.
Hold up the roof. Yes, hold up that roof with your hands.
Yay, 1996. Going back in the day. Also on the show today, we have our great friend, Mr. Oh, me too. Yeah, I'm here. We know I'm here, though. Matthew, the great and magical Thornbury.
Powerful?
Yay.
Somewhat
Thanks
powerful.
for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for shaving for us today, too. That was very appreciated. You look very adultish
Yeah, the
today.
people at home don't know, but we really, really appreciate that on Zoom.
I'm actually a little upset about it because person took way too much off of my beard and put me behind on my shooting again. This is the second time it's happened in a year.
What's weird is they took too much off your beard, but put too much else some other place, and it's very awkward to look at.
It's been a point of contention between me and the wife.
Uh-oh. Well, here's who is not worried about a great shave. That's Mr. Don fucking Johnson. We're going to curse today because I want to say that. And
can we curse?
Philip Michael Thomas.
Dude, do whatever you want.
And I can't tell you how beautiful Don Johnson looks in this show. Del, tell me how in love you are with Don Johnson, or Philip Michael Thomas. Go.
Let me tell you something. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard, because what's beautiful is his outfits in the show. You know, if he was stripped bare, I don't know that Miami Vice would be Miami Vice.
He is. In most of this pilot, he's in like a black T-shirt. They even call attention to it.
Yeah, but he's got that white suit and the white pants even still that's tucked in tight.
Half the time, the white jacket is just destroyed in this episode.
Yeah,
like, it really is. No, I think they kind of lean more into the fashion of it as the series progresses. This one just kind of setting the stage a bit, but he's definitely more of he's still a cool cop, but he's a little more hard boiled than I think the show was when it hit like episode 100.
Yeah, I think they were banking on him more as the hot tough cop before they. But here's the thing: is people caught on to that fashion immediately. I was telling Matt, I'm gonna have to look up who said this, but one of the lines I'd read by the critics was, the Miami Vice is the only thing new to be done since color. So I was like, that's
okay. Well, okay. There are a couple of things to unpack there. One
cop rock is a thing, so.
Yeah.
Pop rock.
Then the fact that Don Johnson, they kind of lean more into the style of it later, I think is also because they weren't ready for what he was going to bring to the production.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about later, because it's obvious they weren't meaning for him to be the heavy, I think. And like they weren't going to have him as the anchor. It was supposed to be Tubbs. And a lot of things changed after it became really popular really fast. But also, I think this might, when you said it's the first new thing, since color, I think it's honestly, this is one of those where it's a lot of style over substance.
Yes, but it also did start pushing
that.
But it is one of the only shows that started pushing like more modern pop music, modern. I mean, it did take what was happening at the time and try to make it, hip and cool for even do what?
It wasn't Hill Street Blues.
No, exactly. And I think that's what set it aside is everybody was used to these cop dramas that felt very serious and dramatic. And this one was fun, exciting, cool to look at, but also funny. I mean, let's admit, we'll talk about in a minute, but that courtroom scene where the lights go out.
I have that in my notes. That is one of the funniest things. When all the guns come out,
I forgot about that. I had forgotten, and that came on, and I laughed so hard. Kat came in there asking if I was okay.
All right, before we get to that, and I am very excited about getting to that, let's just kind of run over what the pilot episode is all about. First of all, they have a fancy name for it. It's called Brothers Keeper.
Kudos to them for not just calling it Pilot. So let's give a thumbs up for that.
So Sonny Crockett, who is our Don Johnson, is a Metro-Dade vice detective who has lost his partner due to a car bombing. Very dramatic, and I look forward to talking about that as well.
Now who played his partner, because I was all excited. I'd forgotten they replaced the partner. So I was like, "Oh, right, he's in
I
this.
had no
Jimmy
idea
Smits
Smits was in this.
I did too, because he's not. He gets blown up.
Right.
But when I started watching this again, I hadn't seen this since I was a kid. I was like, "Oh, wow, I guess Jimmy Smits is the other character." And then when he gets blown up, I'm like, "Now how does that work?" Because now I'm confused.
It was a great swerve. It was me and Matt were talking about that earlier.
I completely forgot that his partner gets blown up at the beginning. Completely
different idea that TV was not doing. They're trying to blow up a main character. So yes, that was crazy. So Crockett is investigating a Colombian drug dealer when a New York detective comes to town named Raphael Tubbs. Says they're having problems approaching Calderon. You hear Calderon a whole lot in the first few episodes. They team up to take him down and see if they can bring him to justice or murder him, depending on what they want to do.
Well, I think we should also start that it's set up that we assume Tubbs is the bad guy, because it starts in New York with Tubbs with a shotgun warding off some local hoods. Then we cut to Miami where they're with Sonny and Smits. And by the way, that's a show I want to see. But so Sonny and Smits are hanging out trying to look for the Colombian. Obviously Smits dies, and you assume that Tubbs is part of the criminal gang that had something to do with it. And so when Sonny finally catches Tubbs and reveals that he's a cop from New York, that gets released. I guess that's released because it is set up that you're supposed to think that Tubbs is a bad guy, at least for the initial, the very beginning of the show.
Right. Is really, because I don't know if it's just because I'm, familiar with the show, but I didn't really see it that way. But I think part of that has to do with the fact that the first half an hour of this show seems to be heavily recut away from what I think it was supposed to be, because it definitely seemed like they had everything done sequentially, where you see the deal gone wrong, and then and then later
that feels like a scene that was initially cut into the narrative. Yes,
it seems like that's how it was going to start. And then,
would you say Tubbs's brother's killing?
Right, and I think
it's shown only in flashback, but it really has a feel that it was shot earlier and it just cut up and reinserted.
Right, and from an editor's perspective here, it seems like one of two things happened. Either they said, we're taking too long to get down to Miami in our show called Miami Vice, because otherwise it's going to be 45 minutes. Or they saw what Don Johnson brought, and they're like, whoa, this guy's got the goods. He's bringing movie level talent to TV. We need to kind of focus on him a little bit more, maybe. And the other stuff, we'll just show that in flashbacks.
Yeah. See, for me, what I thought, at least when I was watching it, was that, look, if we're gonna establish Tubbs as what we're gonna think of as a bad guy, we can't reveal the past, but we've already shot this great scene. But then again, all those characters, save for the Colombian, aren't in the rest of the story. So I could see the editor going, I mean, you're just wasting time showing this one murder that you can't link to yet if we're wanting to have that revelation of Tubbs later.
And see,
so you can't have any connection, and then most of the characters aren't in the show. So what's the point of even keeping that in the show short of flashbacks?
Well, technically they are in the show, because that flashback shows up for every episode going forward.
Well, see, and again, that's what was weird to me, is the fact that I didn't get, like, it never came across that he was supposed to appear to be a bad guy, like that. Just, it just seemed, for the first 15 minutes, I felt really lost, because the show just wasn't making like narrative sense. You're just dropped into the middle of something going on, and then it does that hard cut to the opening credits, which is just hilarious.
Not a smooth transition at all.
Well, it's not. And by the way, what is it like? I've heard that theme song since I was 2, right? And this version is missing that awesome guitar riff.
I think that's the extended version.
It was weird, wasn't it? I took notice.
Or I just assumed that was the extended version that played at the end, because I know the guitar part you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I guess I was, until you brought that up just now, I just assumed, I guess that's at probably the end credits. I must be just reassociating that with the beginning.
I think it's one of those things you might have to go back and take a look at, like a season 3, season 4, because like next Star Trek Next Generation apparently re-recorded the opening theme every year, and they changed it just a little bit.
Well, hey, Seinfeld recorded a new opening for every single episode. So,
well, it's because they never had the same opening twice.
Exactly. Yeah, they had to fit that same his cadence every time. But well, what I mean is, even if you didn't think Tubbs was a bad guy, there's still the reveal of who he actually is, because it does turn out. And I think that's what I mean by they kind of went, well, we still have to keep that from the audience, whether you think he's a good guy or a bad guy. And so whether he's sinister or not, I don't think is as important as that part being held back. Right. So that's why the flashback, they were like, we're just really killing a lot of time with people that aren't in the story and never will be again. But on the other hand, that flashback was almost like Monty Python level comedy, because it was the exact same one over and over again. I lost all dramatic tension after the third or fourth time they cut to the same death.
Well, here's a question. I was doing some research on the whole MTV Cops, famous Hollywood legend that it was just a memo that said MTV Cops and, hey, green light, here's money. Turns out that's not true. It was originally a film script that they decided to turn into a show, right? So do you think it would have worked better in a linear fashion instead of showing the death in a flashback if it were a feature film? Because the movie really feels like a feature film and not a pilot for a TV show. Yes. It feels like, we're going to have part 2 next summer, and then we'll have a crappy third movie, and that'll be it.
Well, that could have been the better cold open, because then you're kind of separated the characters. You basically made 2 separate stories. Then there's the, Lavachet. What were the? I can't even think. I just lost it. The one that takes place before.
I thought you were talking about French there for a minute.
There's that little part of the French Hotel part right before the other Wes Anderson film that all of a sudden I'm embarrassing myself because I get Darjeeling Limited. But it would have felt better as a cold open, because you would have thought you were getting invested in these characters. You would have started to care. And then when they all die, you kind of feel like the rug's ripped out from under you. Slap on the Miami Vice, give me some electric guitar, and now let's kick in with Sonny Crockett. Where the beginning they gave you in this cold open was Tubbs
confusing.
Is a badass, but is he a good guy or bad guy? He's clearly hunting that other guy across the street, but why? And what are the emotional stakes? And why do I care? And is he killing a good guy or bad guy? And you're right. It just dropped you in with nothing to even try to invest yourself in until they're standing on the bridge, finally talking about what's going on between New York and Miami. And that took way too long to get to, honestly.
So here's my question. Who's the main character?
I love this topic.
Who's the main character?
Oh, Sonny. Well, I think, even though they try to make it Tubbs, and I think that you're supposed to buy into that. There you go. Yeah. It was because you're right. But Don Johnson brought the heavy and brought the glitz and the glamour and the looks. And I think he pulled the story back to him. I can imagine, they gave him so many eccentricities. The alligator named Elvis.
The alligator, baby.
What is with everybody in the 80s living on a boat?
Dude, I don't know, but the more I see it, the older I get, the more I go, I kind of want that.
The older I get, the more I think of, well, I know what it takes for the upkeep on a boat and how expensive that is, and a house. And this is both of those combined. This is a bad idea.
No, Matt, you're assuming that you're not living in television world where the boat doesn't need to have upkeep.
Well, if it's television world, yeah.
Yeah, Miami-Dade's paying for that
it's boat. Just like, it's just like how the Friends people can live in New York in that giant house. It's the same.
Oh, that was rent
magical
control.
Rules.
That was rent control.
Oh, is that what it was? Well, then this is
well, 1 second.
Rent control boat.
Friends. Who had the apartment? Was it the grandma?
Yeah, it was the grandma that had the rent control. So since we're here on this topic, let's expand this, because we always do like to talk about, would this be better as a movie? There was a movie, so let's talk about the glory that is the Miami Vice movie, starring our favorite Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx. Take that anywhere, Dale.
Okay, funny thing. The show was produced by Michael Mann, but he never directed an episode, but he directed the movie.
Yeah, and he never wrote or anything for it. As far as I can tell, he literally just put his name as executive producer for every episode.
I think he just put his muscle behind it to get it made, because it was so weird at the time. Because first of all,
Don Johnson had something on him.
you also have to have some muscle behind it to get a studio to agree to pay for that kind of music licensing for a show.
They said a huge chunk of the budget every
had
week
to,
would
had
go
to
to music.
Yeah.
And then the wardrobe, they had designers like Vittorio Ricci, Giovanni Versace, Hugo Boss were all consultants, paid consultants on the show after the first either couple of episodes or first season. So, I mean, they were paying some of the largest designers in the world to make sure Sonny was abreast of local trends. In fact, people would actually tune into Miami Vice to see what was going to be coming up in fashion. So it was the show, one of the only shows that led fashion.
I still turn in for it. I still wear my clothes based off of that.
If you're basing your show in Miami in 1984, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to kind of put that much money behind the style of it. And that's actually another question. Like, how much cocaine was being done on this?
Oh, all of it.
Right.
This Miami Vice, whatever wasn't used on Animal House was packed up and saved for SNL, and then SNL had to share it with Miami Vice. That was
like Blues Brothers, where they had the line item in the budget for cocaine.
They had to. It had to be like wardrobe, cocaine, then writers, directors, grips. That's the order it had to go.
And allegedly in the movie as well, that was a big part of Colin Harrell's being in character, was allegedly cocaine use.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So he went method acting on that.
He did go method acting.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
There's no way Sonny Crockett doesn't do a bump every now and then with an alligator. I imagine he's sitting there with the alligator being like, alligator,
the cocaine
you do a lot more up your
nose.
nose.
Alligator.
Yeah. Your nostrils are way too big, alligator. We are not splitting this equally. Or I guess I should say Elvis. He probably calls it by its name. Let's be fair. He's not calling it alligator to its face. That's rude.
He got, maybe I missed it. Maybe they talk about it later, but did his character get the alligator from a dealer that he took down?
It was repoed. It was a repoed alligator.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, don't forget people, some fraternity guys, in his words, Captain Hooked it. They tricked the alligator into eating an alarm clock. So there's always a ticking coming from the alligator too. There's so much, this show. Okay. You want to just be like, oh, it's a cool hip show. But then you try to explain to somebody and they're like, it sounds cheesy. And you're like, yes, that was also fun. But then the comedy, the
casual racism,
the casual racism, the
where he
casual
goes,
owning of an alligator,
here working on your tan. It's like, whoa.
You rolled us perfectly into the next topic. Let's talk favorite moments, least favorite moments, funniest moments. What do you got for us?
I think we all agreed on the funniest moment.
The guns being pulled in court. It's the funniest thing.
So here, I'll walk the people at home if you haven't
Please
seen
do.
it. So they're sitting in court, the officers, Tubbs and Sonny, and they're trying to get one of their witnesses to flip. And so they're going to tell the judge that he cooperated with them in court, out loud. So it makes it look like he's a rat. But during this, all the lights go off, and I guess a power heat is power surge, what they say due to the heat. When all the lights come back on, every single person, because this is Florida, remember, has a gun drawn and pulled. Everyone, that includes the two old ladies, the
one of them has a giant Magnum. It's
funniest I think she's the stenographer, and she's cleared also. And you want to talk about the casual racism? Is everybody kind of laughs? They all put their guns away. It's ha ha ha. That was good. And the judge is like, well, like Susan or whatever her name is, Susan, and she has got her gun trained on the only black police officer in the shot, Tubbs, and she will not put that gun down. And the judge has to tell her, please put your giant gun that's pointed at an officer of the law down just because he's black.
Another thing that had me laughing in that scene, people were doused with sweat in that scene. Yeah. I mean, I know it's supposed to be Miami, but it looked like someone just dumped water on their heads and said action. It's amazing.
There were a lot of scenes like that where, they're going out to eat and they go to meet some of the dealers, and it's all like all the windows are open, all the fans are on, all the ACs are running constantly. I caught a couple of little scenes where if you listen, I'm convinced the audio editor went in and cranked up the AC sounds, because they'll go from inside to outside and outside to inside, and it just roars and then it comes back down. So I think they were playing that part up as well. Because anytime they go in the police department, you can hear it just kick up and come back down.
Okay, so let's talk about the best scenes, because there are two equally great scenes for their own place in the show. One of them is the boat ride down to South America. Jesus, how do you ride on that boat like that? I'm puking everywhere. If you watch the wide shot, Tubbs looks like he's about to fall off the boat. It is hilarious. So you got that.
I'm not
scene.
like that at all. That doesn't bother me in the least. I thought that was so cool because just like in the movie when they take the boat to Havana, I'm just like, how cool would that be? Instead of driving 6 hours to go to, from Dallas to Austin, you take a boat and you're in another country and you're in Havana and you have a few drinks and you just bring a boat back. That's awesome to me.
But the best scene, the greatest scene, maybe the greatest scene in TV history.
That's not true, but
in TV history.
No.
Phil Collins in the air tonight. They're going to the job. We got the low shots on the tires. It's nighttime. I believe there's some rain going on. It is the ultimate homage to that time in space. Drive took so much of those shots. There are a lot of movies that have taken it since. But if that's not the best shot in TV movie history, Matt, tell me what is. Go.
The best shot?
Already said
the best scene.
The best scene, excuse me, the best scene. What do you got?
Oh, God, the best scene in TV history?
Yes, if you tell me Hulk, I'm going to beat you up.
I would go with the ending of Twilight Zone where Time Enough at Last.
Is that the one with the library where you can't read?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
one of my favorite.
That's not fair. Yeah.
That's okay. What
Mine still wins.
Of Main Street or whatever.
No,
yeah.
Miami Vice still wins. Get that out of here.
No. Two reasons I win. One, Burgess Meredith, and two, Phil Collins.
Well, you missed it on both of those. So you know what? You get the mute button.
This is America.
Boom. You're muted now, buddy. Del, what you got? You got to agree with me.
Is it of Miami Vice or of all times?
Oh, I'm talking about all time, baby.
All times greatest. Okay. Well, geez, it's probably that time that my parents didn't realize that the nudie channel was unscrambled, and I caught a picture of a boob, a slightly blurry boob.
That's better. That's younger. Better than Miami Vice. I'm gonna be honest with you.
That's probably the greatest moment of television for me as a young man. No, let's see. The greatest moment in television. I don't know. Is it a time I cried or a time I laughed? You know what? I'm going to say more recently, just because it sticks in my head. When Michael kicks a dog into the sun in The Good Place. I don't know why. I literally fell out of my chair. I've been drinking a little bit, to be fair, but I literally fell out of my chair when somebody punted a cute dog into the sun. I just didn't know what to expect. So there you go. That's something from recent.
Oh, if we're going to go with recent ones, have any of you been watching Raised by Wolves?
No, not yet.
I have. I don't know what's going on, but I have.
First episode where that killbot boards the human ship.
Hi, caramba.
Yeah, that scene just had me going like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this.
Okay, so we did establish that I was correct in this answer, and
no,
that was the best scene ever.
The exact opposite. Is that you're wrong?
I'm sorry. What do you say? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I'm back.
I don't think Del knows how to do that. I'll unmute you, Del. Oh, I broke you. Del, you got to unmute yourself.
I know. There we go. Okay. No, Matt, even better than that is when Homer Simpson slowly walks backwards into the shrub. That's clearly one of the greatest moments of all time. And also when he says, Dad, you killed Zombie Flanders. And he goes, he was a zombie.
He was a zombie?
That's still just one of the greatest moments of all time.
Oh, man. Pretty much anything from the Summer of 4'2" or when Maggie makes 3. There's a whole lot of better stuff. But that one's a good one. What confused me, though, was didn't he used to drive around a white Lamborghini?
Okay, so I can answer that question. So in the pilot, no, he drives the Daytona Spider. That's his thing. Yeah. Eventually he does get a different car, but I think he kept this car for the most of the first season.
Okay, they just traded up. All right.
Yeah. Yep. And then at some point in time, Crockett drives a Trans Am. Oh, Smokey and the Bandit style,
I remember.
baby.
I remember that for some reason more.
Well, I can tell you why he drove a Trans Am. It's Knight Rider. Knight Rider.
Speaking of, I've got that running on over here on the side. So, I finished part 1. I guess I'm on to part 2 here, since that'll be one of the next episodes we do. But I do want to point out, as I'm reading about this. Or you know what? Let's just pretend that I knew this off the top of my head.
Let's do it.
So Macy's released a Miami Vice section in its young men's department. And I remember this when I was a kid, that they had a section that was just Miami Vice for young teenagers. And Kenneth Cole also introduced a series of shoes called Crockett and Tubbs.
And if you ask for socks, you get kicked out of the store.
I never owned a pair of those, but I do actually remember going to Macy's as a young man and seeing the actual whole area sectioned off as Miami Vice, and wanting to go over there so bad because I was a fan of the show even as a kid.
I have a question for both of you, and that question is this anyone's mountaintop? Anybody involved in the show? Anything around the show? We need to know. We'll start at the top and we'll work our way down. So we'll start with Crockett and Tubbs. Is this Don Johnson or Philip Michael Thomas's best work?
Might be Philip Michael Thomas's best, or at least what he's known for. But I'll put it this way: Don Johnson wasn't. Don Johnson's not doing another. No, he's not doing another Miami Vice, but he is in production on a Nash Bridges show. Because don't forget, Nash Bridges ran forever. And even though his character was despicable, I loved him in Django. And Knives Out, he was hilarious.
No, that was great. Yeah. That part where he hands the dish to her, I didn't know was ad-lib till I was watching some of the behind the scenes. But that one little joke made his character for me. Just killed it.
So this started it for him, but I don't know if it'll probably be what's like on his tombstone. But I guarantee you more people right now that consume media have seen him from other things than Miami Vice. Because Miami Vice also didn't run in it didn't make the Nick at Night rounds like other shows did.
Where is it playing now?
I don't think it is
Stars,
because I own it. That's the only reason I was able to watch Stars.
Yep,
it's on NBC, NBC.com. I don't know if it's on Peacock, but I watched it.
Could go and chill.
Dell, here's my question to you then: is this Pretty Colors Mountaintop?
Ah, man.
I mean, this is 80s excess.
I will say this
to a T.
And we were just talking about this because we did Black Monday the other day. And I will say Black Monday, again, we gave it like just a thumbs up all the way around. We loved it. But as for looks, I got to say this was a game changer. I can go back and watch it now, and I still see how it set a precedent for how bright shows should be, especially cop shows. I mean, things like I was just talking about earlier, the things like The Good Place, how it's so obsessed with overabundance of color and oversaturation. But I think you get back to a little bit of Miami Vice.
Well, you always got that in sitcoms, because sitcoms are overlit, right? You can go back to the Brady Bunch,
but you got the overlighting.
And the Brady Bunch is a lot of color. But for cop procedurals, you're 100% right. Especially coming out of this is '84, coming out of the '70s and very early '80s. Like even you're watching Knight Rider right now. It felt like they used a completely different film stock.
And one of the other things is it's naturally there's a lot of natural light. It's less interiors because they're in Miami, so they want to use that daylight. They want to use that golden hour time.
This is more filmic, and less like
it is cinematic
production. Yeah.
Exactly. Even when they're in restaurants and bars and buildings, there's a lot of there were times they were sitting around the table, and I'm just like, is this Barry Lyndon? Because there's so much you can tell that there's lights behind them, but so much of it feels from the candles on the table, the warm lights from the room that they're using to offset this club, this club sequence that makes you feel intimate and warm from the bright, harsh daylight, and normally crime, even true detectives like this, they want to make it dark. They want to make it mysterious. They want to make it, grimy. Even The Wire did that. But something like The Wire did too is when they bring it out in the open and show it in the daylight, you get this whole different feel for how crime's represented on television. And Miami Vice definitely, to me, was the first one to do that, to really be like, it's the same whether it's night or day or inside a club, and crime's crime, but put it out in the colors, let it see the light of day, And I think The Wire did a great job with that too.
Talking about this being more cinematic, you can also tell it with the framing, because, TV and film back in the early 80s, they were mostly shot open matte. Right. they weren't matted down to 1/8.5 for theatrical release. But this is very obvious. They cropped it. They had it cropped in mind, right? When you take a look at it, it's obviously open matte, but instead of having normal headroom that you would have on a TV show, there's just that extra little bit in case they wanted to go theatrical with it, which again, I'm wondering if this was supposed to be a TV show from the get-go. Like when they went into production on it, could it have just been, hey, this is a movie, and someone's like, this isn't like movie caliber.
It could have
been
it could have been a TV movie that they used as a backdoor pilot. If it works, then let's carry it on and run a show with it. Because there are definitely some framing during dialogue that is not natural for what you generally use is, two over the shoulders and a one camera for both. There's times where one person is definitely more in front and a person's further back and they're having a conversation, not even face to face. There's stuff that just, it's harder to shoot and it costs more money, but it looks better. And they use those techniques more often than not in the show. When you start with Sonny and Smitty, I cannot remember that other character's name, Eddie Riviera. They're introduced as both looking the same direction towards the hip, the dancer, and having a conversation that's more like you would have with your friend while watching something. You don't need to make eye contact and turn around and have that over the camera shot. And that just immediately told you how familiar they are with each other. They trust each other. One guy has the other one's back essentially in the shot. They have that quick dialogue of give your girlfriend, a call. It lets you know that they know about each other so fast, so quick, that it was very efficient in its storytelling sometimes, and then other times it wasn't. And that's why I think you're right that it was chopped and recut at some points to maybe make it fit more into the television style. I think I think we're kind of in on something, that this may have been a television movie,
or maybe even something theatrical. Yeah. And as they were working on it, someone came to Man and said, hey, you got any ideas for a TV show? And he's like, well,
yeah, this was a great discussion, but I'm going to kill both your dreams right now and let you know that as you were talking, I learned that it was not. It was written as a TV show. So unfortunately, it was.
Yeah, but that's what you're going to say if you're covering your ass because you don't know.
Because that's literally not what I read earlier.
I'm just briefly.
According to what I'm making, and according to what I'm making up right this moment, you're both wrong. It turns out that it was some kind of signal from space that was adapted into visual poetry.
Well, I think that we would all look great in white suits. We probably should not don those, but what we should do is tell everybody if we would or would not recommend the show. I think this is pretty easy. Yeah. Since you're the guest today, Matt, we will start with you. Would you recommend the pilot episode of Miami Vice?
I think I would, just because if anything, it is an interesting little movie. Even if you don't want to watch the rest of the show, it has a decent conclusion that kind of leaves you wanting more, but isn't a bad conclusion. And I think it's a nice little slice of what the 80s was like, because it wasn't yet a cartoon version of the 80s. It was very real for that time and place.
I would say just, yes, I had fun even from the beginning, where Tubbs is kind of a badass, you don't know who he is, through the end of the episode, when you don't know whether he's going to kill the guy or not. I enjoyed it. I really did. I'll say this. I enjoyed it so much that I finished the pilot at around 1:00 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, on a work night. I had a few more drinks and I acquired Miami Vice, the film, and watched it in its entirety till about 4:30 in the morning. So the TV show is so good. I wanted to see how it compared to the film. And honestly, I love the film too. So they're totally wildly different, but the characters somehow are cohesive in the two. Yeah. And you know what? It was fun. It was honestly fun. And I can't say that about every procedural, that I'll watch. No. And you know what? I even kind of give a care about the love interest. I honestly felt bad for Sonny when he meets this new girl. I guess we didn't even talk about that, but he meets this new girl at the precinct, and he really has feelings for her. And he whispers his wife's name, after they're done making love. He doesn't even remember it. She's mad at him the next day, but he really does try to win her back over. And I'll be honest, I felt for the guy, Yeah. And so there was some endearment in there as well. So no, for a pilot, man, I think they kind of knocked it out of the park. Whatever it was supposed to be, they succeeded.
You want to talk about really bringing it when he confronts the guy about, like, so how you paying for this? Like, where are you getting this money? When he confronts his friend, I felt that betrayal, that hurt that he did. And the guy, when he's like, I'm sorry, I screwed up. Like, they were both in pain, and it's like, oh, this is a real moment. This is nice. We don't get this often.
Yeah,
I think I've watched the Phil Collins scene like 20 times now. And I'll probably watch it 20 more times because it's the greatest scene that's ever happened in the history of TV. So I'm going to recommend this as well. And so
I'm going to say that they started with Sonny as a badass, and I think you're supposed to be, he's cool, he's hip, he's a badass, he's great with the gun, he's great with the ladies. But then as the show goes on, you see him mess up with the ladies, you see him mess up with his partners, you see him mess up in the crime, you see him feel guilty about having, his partner being killed. And I think it takes this really cool hip guy and immediately breaks him down in the first episode in an attempt to build him back up. And that was refreshing too, with all the fun.
Dale, let me ask you a question. Where can the people find Pilot Pass?
People can find Pilot Pass on all the podcasty type apps out there. And that's not appetizers. That's short for appetizer locations. So you can download those on your iDroids or your phone maps.
Okay.
And or your Zunes. That's right. Good. They're available on Zune now. If you want, you can also go listen to our audio only podcast on YouTube, the video streaming channel. That's up there now. Episodes of the audio release on podcasts on Monday morning. So they're available first thing in the week to roll you into the week. They drop on YouTube on Tuesday morning. So if you're unable to listen, you can tune in at work and put it in the background.
I hate to interrupt you.
Thumbs up.
But you're wrong on that. It's Tuesday and Wednesday, but you were almost there. They were days of the week that you had, but Tuesday and Wednesday is when we go.
Well, we just got the YouTubes up, so they'll be going up Wednesdays and Thursdays then. They go up a day after the audio. Let's say that. We're a relative group here. We don't need to lock things down, people. Let's chill. So the episodes go up when they go up, people. Deal with it. You're welcome. We're giving you this free, amazing entertainment. Check us out. We also have the Patreon. Donate us any money. If you like what you hear, that's great. We use the money to be, we're going to be producing some merchandise, t-shirts, a few other things. One of the things you get is obviously we talk on Zoom while we're doing this. You'll be able to see the Zoom calls of us picking our noses, ruffling our head. You'll see me scratching my head all the time. You'll go, what's that about? And don't even worry about it's a scar I had since I was 17. You'll see Thornbury talking to his wife when his camera's muted and trying to pretend like it's not happening. You'll see Matt
I don't
carrying the phone to the bathroom and trying to pretend like nobody notices. So it's a lot of fun to see what's
I was
really
literally
going
shoving
on.
food in my face this time. You could have just said that one.
Yeah.
No. Matt, you're not just a guest on the show. You also do a podcast as well. Tell the people about your podcast.
Our podcast is called
podcast.
Matt Men.
Yes.
You can find it, I'm pretty sure, everywhere. They go up whenever there's news to talk about. And we got to do one soon because holy crap, is there a lot of news to talk about.
The industry is falling apart.
It is done. Disney
the world is falling apart, gentlemen.
Disney is taking its ball and going home.
Well, to be fair, so is NBC. So is NBC.
Yeah. It's
everybody is taking their ball and going to their own streaming services, and it's driving me insane.
Yeah, but the only difference is NBC hasn't been propping up theatrical distribution for the last decade.
It's crazy. It's a crazy world out there. I hope
that's what Disney's doing.
I hope that we get to keep watching great things like Miami Vice. I hope to see you both again very soon. Del, do you have a joke to leave the people on?
No.
Until next time.